The wind off the Charles River carried the smell of wet leaves and distant wood smoke into Mount Auburn Cemetery, where Alexander Grant knelt on the frost-hardened ground. His knees, once strong enough to carry a 12-year-old girl on his shoulders for miles, now trembled beneath the weight of a grief he could not name. The granite headstone in front of him read, "Lillian Grace Grant, beloved daughter, April 12, 2001. September 3, 2025. 2 months. 61 days since the fire. 61 nights since he had last heard her laugh, bright, unapologetic, the sound of a girl who believed the world was hers to fix. He pressed his forehead to the cold stone. "I should have been there," he whispered. "I should have known." Behind him, the city's skyline glittered like a lie. Alexander had built half of it, Grant Tower, the new biotech campus in Kendall Square, the luxury condos along the harbor. He had built everything except the one thing that mattered. His fingers closed around the silver locket in his coat pocket. Inside was a photograph of Lillian at 16, gap-toothed and grinning, taken the summer before everything changed. The summer before Vanessa. Vanessa. His wife of 3 years. The woman who had stepped into the void left by Lillian's mother, who had smiled at him across boardroom tables and whispered that she understood his pain. The woman who now stood at his side at every funeral, every memorial, her hand resting lightly on his arm, as if she had a right to his sorrow. And Victor, his younger brother, the one who had always been the charming one, the one who could sell ice to a blizzard, the one who had taken Lillian in after the divorce, who had promised to keep her safe while Alexander buried himself in work. They had both been there the night of the fire. Vanessa had called him at 2:17 a.m., her voice trembling. "Alexander, there's been an accident. Victor's house, it's gone. Lillian." She hadn't needed to finish. The firefighters had found a body, charred beyond recognition. Dental records confirmed it was Lillian. Alexander had signed the papers himself, his hand shaking so badly the pen left grooves in the page. Now in the cemetery, he opened the locket and stared at the photograph until the edges blurred. "I'm sorry," he said again. "I'm so sorry." A twig snapped behind him. He turned, expecting Vanessa or Victor with their practiced sympathy. Instead, a shadow detached itself from the oak trees. A girl. Thin, hooded, moving like someone who had forgotten how to be seen. She stopped 10 feet away. The hood fell back. Lillian. Her hair was shorter, hacked off with something dull. Her cheekbones were sharper, her eyes older. But it was her. The same tilt of the head when she was trying not to cry. The same scar on her left eyebrow from the time she tried to skateboard down the marble staircase at the summer house. Alexander's breath left him in a sound that was half sob, half prayer. Lillian. She took one step forward, then stopped. "Dad." The word broke him. He stumbled to his feet, reaching for her, but she flinched back. "They're watching," she whispered. "They think I'm dead. If they see me, who?" His voice cracked. "Who's watching Vanessa?" "Victor." They did this. The world tilted. Alexander gripped the headstone to stay upright. "What are you talking about?" Lillian's eyes darted to the tree line. "I don't have time. Just listen. The fire wasn't an accident. They locked me in the basement, poured gasoline. I got out through the coal chute. I've been hiding, watching. They're going to kill you too." He stared at her, the locket cutting into his palm. "Why money? Everything. The trusts, the company. You changed your will after the wedding, remember? If we both die, it all goes to them." Alexander's mind raced. He had changed the will. Vanessa had suggested it for tax purposes, she'd said. Victor had nodded along, ever the supportive brother. He had signed without reading the fine print. "Lillian," he said slowly, "come home. We'll go to the police, no." She backed away. "They'll know. They have people everywhere. I have proof, recordings, documents, but I need time. Where are you staying?" "A shelter in Dorchester." "I can't tell you more. If they find me—" She swallowed. "I just needed to see you, to know you were still fighting." Alexander took a step toward her. "I'm not fighting. I'm drowning." Her face crumpled. "Then fight for me. Pretend I'm gone. Let them think they've won. I'll come back when it's safe. Lillian, promise me." He looked at her, at the daughter he had buried, now standing alive and terrified in the moonlight. "I promise." She was gone before he could touch her, melting into the shadows, like a ghost who had never learned how to stay. That night, Alexander sat in his study with the lights off. The house was too quiet. Vanessa was asleep upstairs, her breathing soft and even, through the baby monitor she insisted they still use for security. Victor had gone back to his condo in the seaport, promising to return in the morning to go over the succession plan. Alexander poured himself a scotch and didn't drink it. He thought of the fire. The way Vanessa had cried at the funeral, beautiful, tragic tears that never smudged her mascara. The way Victor had clapped him on the back and said, "She's in a better place, Alex. Let's honor her by keeping the company strong." He thought of Lillian's face in the cemetery, the fear in her eyes, the way she had looked at him like he was the only real thing left in her world. At 3:12 a.m., his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Shelter on Southampton St. Ask for Lily. Don't come during the day." He stared at the message until the screen went dark. The next morning, Vanessa found him in the kitchen, staring at a cold cup of coffee. "You didn't sleep," she said, kissing his cheek. Her perfume was the same as always, jasmine, and something sharper underneath. "The board meeting's at 10. Victor's bringing the revised trust documents." Alexander nodded. "I'll be there." She hesitated. "Are you sure you're up for it?" "We could postpone, no." He forced a smile. "Lillian would want us to keep moving forward." Vanessa's eyes softened. "She was so proud of you." He watched her leave the lie sitting heavy on his tongue. The shelter was a converted church with peeling paint and a crucifix missing one arm. Alexander wore a baseball cap and a hoodie that smelled like mothballs. He told the volunteer at the desk he was looking for his niece Lily. She led him to the back past rows of cots and the smell of bleach and despair. Lillian sat on a bottom bunk, knees drawn to her chest, sketching on a napkin with a stub of pencil. She looked up when he approached. "You came." "I said I would." She glanced around, then pulled him into the corner where the light didn't reach. "I have everything." She reached under the mattress and pulled out a flash drive taped to a prayer card. Recordings from the house, emails, bank transfers. They hired someone to start the fire. A man named Doyle. He's in Roxbury. I followed him. Alexander took the drive. It was warm from her hand. "How did you—" "I used to hack your phone for fun, remember? When you wouldn't let me stay up past 10. A ghost of a smile. I got better." He wanted to laugh. He wanted to cry. Instead, he said, "What now you die?" He blinked. Temporarily, she clarified. "We stage it. Heart attack. Overdose. Something they'll believe. You disappear. I stay hidden. When they try to claim the inheritance, we come back with the evidence. Alexander looked at her, at this fierce, broken girl who had survived hell and come out sharper for it. You've thought this through. I've had 2 months. He nodded slowly. Okay, but we do it my way. No risks, no heroes. She rolled her eyes. You're the one who taught me to take calculated risks. That was for mergers, not murder plots. Same principle. They planned in whispers, in church basements, in the back of Ubers driven by drivers who didn't speak English. Alexander hired a doctor who owed him a favor from the old days, a man who could forge a death certificate and keep his mouth shut. Lillian mapped Vanessa and Victor's routines with the precision of a general. On November 1st, Alexander collapsed in his study. Vanessa found him at 7:42 p.m., clutching his chest foam at the corners of his mouth. The ambulance came. The pronouncement was made at Mass General at 8:19 p.m. Cause of death, acute myocardial infarction complicated by undiagnosed arrhythmia. The funeral was held 3 days later. Closed casket. Vanessa wore black velvet and pearls. Victor gave a eulogy that brought half the congregation to tears. Lillian watched from the balcony of the church, hidden behind a pillar. She wore a janitor's uniform and a name tag that read Maria. When Vanessa dabbed at her eyes with a lace handkerchief, Lillian's fingers tightened around the flash drive in her pocket. Alexander's body was cremated. The ashes were scattered in the harbor at dawn per his final wishes. Vanessa and Victor stood on the dock, arms around each other, watching the gray dust disappear into the water. That night, they celebrated, quietly. A bottle of 1982 Chateau Margaux in the study where Alexander had died. Victor poured. Vanessa raised her glass. To new beginnings, she said. Victor clinked his glass against hers, and to never having to pretend again. They didn't notice the tiny camera hidden in the smoke detector, or the microphone taped beneath the desk. The probate hearing was scheduled for November 15th. Vanessa and Victor arrived at the Suffolk County Courthouse in matching somber suits. The judge, a stern woman with half-moon glasses, reviewed the documents. Everything appears to be in order, she said. Upon confirmation of Mr. Grant's death and the absence of other heirs, the doors at the back of the courtroom burst open. Alexander strode in, alive and furious, flanked by 2 detectives and a very much alive Lillian. The courtroom erupted. Vanessa dropped her purse. Victor turned the color of spoiled milk. What is the meaning of this? The judge demanded. Alexander didn't look at her. He looked at Vanessa. Ask my wife. She's the one who murdered my daughter. Gasps, camera flashes. Lillian stepped forward, holding up the flash drive like a talisman. We have evidence, she said, her voice steady. Recordings, financial records, a hired arsonist willing to testify in exchange for a deal. They faked my death. They poisoned my father. All for money. Vanessa lunged for the exit, but a bailiff caught her arm. Victor tried to bluff. This is absurd. Your Honor, some kind of sick prank, but his voice cracked on the last word. The judge banged her gavel. Bailiffs detain these individuals. This hearing is adjourned pending investigation. They were arrested that afternoon. Doyle, the arsonist, rolled over immediately. The recordings were damning, Vanessa's cool voice discussing the girl problem, Victor laughing about how easy it would be to stage a relapse. The bank transfers led to offshore accounts in the Caymans. The trial was a circus. The media dubbed it the graveyard inheritance. Vanessa tried to play the grieving widow, but the jury wasn't buying it. Victor cracked on the stand, blaming Vanessa, then himself, then the pressures of success. They both got life. Alexander and Lillian moved to a small house on the Cape far from the city's glass towers. The first morning, Lillian woke to the sound of gulls and the smell of coffee. She found her father on the porch, staring at the ocean. "I keep waiting to wake up," he said. She sat beside him. "We're awake, we're here." He took her hand. It was calloused now from months of survival. "I should have seen it. Vanessa, Victor, all of it. You were grieving. I was blind." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "We both were." They stayed like that, until the sun burned off the morning mist. Inside the phone rang some reporter wanting a quote. Alexander let it go to voicemail. Later they walked the beach. Lillian picked up a piece of sea glass, smooth and green. "Remember when I used to collect these, you said they were mermaid tears. I still believe that." He smiled, the first real one in months. "Then let's keep collecting." Years later, when people asked how they survived, Alexander would say it was luck. Lillian would say it was love. The truth was somewhere in between. They never went back to the cemetery. The headstone was removed, the plot left empty. A quiet acknowledgement that some deaths are lies and some resurrections are earned. In the end, the grant fortune was donated to fire safety research and shelters for runaway teens. The company was sold. The towers still stood, but Alexander Grant's name was no longer on them. He and Lillian lived quietly. They cooked together badly. They argued about music loudly. They learned the difference between surviving and living. One night, years after the trial, Lillian found her father in the kitchen holding the silver locket. The photograph inside was cracked, but her younger self still grinned. "I keep thinking she's going to walk through the door," he said. "She did," Lillian replied. "She just took the long way." He laughed, then a sound like waves breaking on rocks. Outside, the moon hung low over the water, full and bright and real. In Boston, the city moved on. New scandals replaced old ones. New towers rose. But in a small house on the Cape, a father and daughter rebuilt their world one sunrise at a time. And somewhere in the space between grief and grace, they found their way home.